The 2020 C8 mid-engine Corvette has finally been announced. It's official from General Motors after years of spy photos and teasers and whatnot, and the debut is going to be July 18th. That's a mid-week event. My name is Eric. I'll be covering it live on YouTube, and I'll be live streaming it on Instagram as well, so if you want to go follow me there, that would be super cool. It's still got a lot of camo on it, so we're going to take a look in the video and see what I think is real and what's fake and what's going to go away. Now, the 2020 Toyota Supra was also just revealed back in January. You can't buy it yet, but it's almost in the same price class. Let's see how the C8 Corvette stacks up against the Supra. Starting with price. We already know a lot about the Supra because it was announced at the North American International Auto Show. The base price is $50,000. Now, there are some higher level trim versions, but they all have the same powertrain. Now, the C7 Corvette, the base Stingray, starts at $57,000. And of course, we don't know what the final price is going to be, but there's some speculation. I'm going to put it at about $62,000. So actually, we're not really talking about the same price bracket between these two cars. It's a bit of an unfair comparison. The Corvette is going to be about 24% more, something like that. So right off the bat, not exactly a perfect comparison, but hey, this is fun. So just on price, I'm going to give a point to the Supra. Let's talk about weight for a moment. So the Supra, Toyota says it's going to be 3,400 pounds, but there's been some measurements already done on the car, and it actually weighs about 3,300 pounds. From Corvette Forum, with actual weights and automatic transmission in the C7, the base C7 is about 3,300, but if you get the automatic transmission, you're looking at about 3,400. Is the C8 going to be heavier than the C7? My guess is yes, so I'm going to peg it at about 3,400 to 3,500 pounds. So 1 point for the Supra. The engine. The Supra has a front engine rear drive configuration. It's a classic configuration. It's a 3-liter inline 6. It's a turbo. It's called the B58. It was introduced in 2015 and it was actually co-developed with BMW and Toyota. It makes 335 horsepower, 369 pounds-feet of torque. It's got an air-to-water intercooler in the top. And so far, the aftermarket, there's somebody in Europe that has gotten this up to 700 wheel horsepower with a bigger turbo. The C8 Corvette. Now, we don't have any confirmation on the engine yet, but there's pretty good hypothesis that it's going to be called the LT2, which is going to be based on the current LT1 design with a single camshaft in the V overhead valve design. Currently, it makes 460 horsepower, 465 pounds-feet of torque. I'm going to guess that the LT2, if that's what it's called, is going to come in at about 500 horsepower, 500 pounds-feet of torque, maybe a little bit higher. The Supra does 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds. I would expect that the Corvette is going to be a little bit faster than that. Now, we know that there's going to be future models, more high-performance models of the Corvette, like the Z06. Usually that's going to be a year out, the ZR1 perhaps. Those are going to be a higher price. But on the engine, I think this is an easy point for the Corvette. Obviously different configuration. We've got a mid-engine design for the very first time. The interior. On the Supra, of course, some people are going to say it is a BMW-derived interior, but I think aside from the iDrive, the navigation screen, and the steering wheel, they're actually not that similar. It's not as premium as a BMW, and it's certainly very simple and driver-focused. I've sat in it, there's no distractions, there's no shiny plastic, there's a lot of soft-touch material everywhere. The HVAC controls are very Audi-like, actually very simple. It's not super premium, but the seats are very high build quality, I think. They're very comfortable, and it's not a space for a large, hefty dude or someone who's 6'4". If GM is anything like it's been in the past, the C5 was awful, the C6 was a pretty awful interior, quite frankly. And remember, GM kept trying to position themselves against Porsche. The C7, is it better? Well, it is better, but in my opinion, it's really not befitting a $57,000 car. In fact, it's not even close. The Z06, $83,000 with that interior? It's a big nope for me. There's been some spy photos of the interior, not a whole lot right now. The switchgear looks nice. They've got some white leather apparently. the steering wheel. The steering wheel that I've seen in the spy shot that's got shiny plastics all over looks pretty production to me. It is a big fat ball of nope for me. I mean, here's the bottom line for me. General Motors is known to cut corners. They seem to think that people won't mind or won't notice when they cut a few corners, but they're trying to compete with the big leagues at half the price. And so, you know, maybe no one's really cross-shopping a Porsche and a Corvette, but the interior has never been there for me. And you know what? Maybe people would cross-shop a German car with a Corvette if the interior quality was higher. So it's obviously too early to see what General Motors has done, but based upon past experience, I give this an easy point to the Supra. If you're enjoying this video, please go ahead and subscribe. That would be awesome. And before we jump ahead, we're going to look at this camo on the side of the car. Now this piece of camouflage on the door here, this is clearly not going to make it into the final production car. Look at this little bit over here and you can see that it is basically styrofoam. Let's take another view of it here. So zooming right in, this kind of little bat wing situation that we have here. Clearly this is made out of styrofoam. You can see there's a top piece and a bottom piece to it. And there looks like there is maybe a door lock underneath. So that obviously extends onto the rear portion of the car as well. And so it goes over the fenders. This whole piece sort of extends over the fenders. So this whole intake on the side and the rear fenders, that is completely covered up. It's completely camo. Clearly that is not going to make it into the production version. So we're not going to have this crazy wide, super aggressive scoop on the side for air. It's not going to be as big and as crazy in the production model. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to look like. And I think the tops of the fenders are probably false too, to give us just kind of a more boxy look right now. So there's actually still quite a bit of camo on this car. So GM hasn't really given us or shown all their cards yet. Looking at this photo, something really odd jumps out at me, and that is where I thought the rear air intake was. In this picture, it's completely blocked off with black plastic. I don't know if there really is not going to be an air intake in the side and this whole thing is kind of for show, or it's just blocked off for this particular press event. Let me know down below what you think this is. The gearbox. So the biggest difference is that the Supra comes with a manual. What's that?
There's no manual, Eric.
Oh yeah, no manual, bummer. Well, it does come with a ZF8HP, which is an 8-speed automatic transmission. It is incredibly fast. It has 200 millisecond shift times. It's actually faster than most DCTs. It's used in the Hellcat, and I think in the Supra it's going to be the 8HP70 possibly, which is a 500 pound-foot torque specification. There is no manual at launch, unfortunately. It's theoretically possible for the future. The Corvette, people have always loved manuals in the Corvette, just like they have in the past Supras. The Corvette allegedly is going to come with a Tremec 7-speed DCT, probably the TR9070. However, Botsi Tatarovich in Road and Track talked about the leaked order guide, which had an 8-speed dual clutch transmission on it. Now this could be the 8-speed ZF DCT, the ZF8 DT found in the Porsche Panamera. There's not a lot of 8-speed DCTs that actually work with the mid-engine. So the 7-speed 7DT was in the previous generation 911. There's probably going to be no manual at launch for the Corvette. Not sure what's down the road. I think the DCT is just a more fun transmission to drive, so I'm going to give this point to the Corvette. Let's talk about handling and suspension. The Supra has in the rear a multi-link geometry. It's a 5-arm design. Up front it's got aluminum control arms. It does have adaptive suspension standard, and it's got a electronically controlled full two-way diff, full two-way locking, 100% either side, and it's essentially the active differential from the BMW M3. Now it's got a short wheelbase, 97.2 inches. That's actually shorter than a Toyota 8.6, and it's got a pretty low center of gravity, apparently lower than the 8.6 as well. Toyota's done extensive track testing with this car. They're really positioning it as a track-capable car, and the early reports are from the test drives that it handles rough surfaces very well and can put the power down very nicely on corner exit. Corvette. Now we obviously don't know too much yet. There hasn't been a lot of leaks regarding handling, but we know it's had a lot of track testing, obviously. Now back in September of 2018, testing at the Nürburgring, there's this photo here where the rear has got a lot of negative camber, And you know, the C6 and the C7 actually have a reputation for being pretty twitchy at the limit when you're on a racetrack. Randy Popst found that the ZR1 was actually very difficult to put power down in the ZR1. And I mean, that's a limitation to some degree of front engine rear-wheel drive. However, the C8, it's going to be a whole new ballgame. It's going to be mid-engine. And if it's anything close to the Cayman S, even the older generation, it should be fantastic. For this one, I'm going to give it a draw because we really don't know much about the Corvette yet, and not too many people have driven the Supra. Brakes. The base brakes and the only brakes available on the Supra are 13.7-inch rotors, 4-piston Brembos. On the base C7, they're 12.6-inch Brembos. The C8, I'm going to guess they're going to move up to 13.7 as well. They might even be the same brakes. I'm not really sure. I'm going to give this one a draw. Corvette's always had great stopping power, and the Supra is going to have pretty good stopping power too, I think. Cargo room. The Supra has a pretty small interior. As I mentioned before, if you're a big guy or you're a really tall guy, probably not going to be the best fit for you. I've sat in it. It's very cozy. It's got a few cubby holes in the interior for storing things. The hatch is not that big, but apparently it is big enough to fit in a set of golf clubs sideways. And Toyota says it's going to be good for weekends with 2 people. The Corvette. Now this is a big open question. Is it going to have space in the frunk and in the hatch, or just in the frunk? Now if it's just in the frunk, I think it's not going to have that much space, and I would probably give the edge to the Supra. However, if it's got space in the front and the back, it's clearly going to go to the Corvette. It's going to have more space overall. Now, fun and feel. All we've been doing really right now is just comparing numbers, and that's actually pretty pointless. It doesn't tell you much about or anything about how the car is going to drive. It just gives you some kind of impression, some kind of direction as to how it might be. So this whole comparison has been a little bit meaningless, because what really matters is how fun the car is to drive. How much feedback does it give you? How forgiving is the car to drive for less capable drivers? The Supra has some pretty early press reviews. I've spoken with Frederick Osbo, who is a factory driver. He's a drift driver, and of course he's going to be telling me the factory line, but he said it's very, very good. There's other people that I know that have driven it. They say it's pretty well tuned, it's pretty track focused. The Corvette, I'm sure it's going to be a ton of fun. I mean, you've got this massive V8 that's always been at the heart of a Corvette. They've always been a lot of fun to drive. I've had a lot of fun in Corvettes too, so in terms of just overall fun and feel, I'm going to give this a tie. So let's tally up the final score. The Supra gets 6 points, and the Corvette gets 6 points. So this one is a draw in my opinion. Not a very scientific comparison, but I thought it would be kind of fun. I'm going to be at the launch event for the C8 Corvette. If you want to help support independent journalism and get me to more events like this, consider joining my Patreon. It's a great way to support this channel monthly. Ad revenue from YouTube is not reliable. My name is Eric. I'll see you in the next video.